Welcome to the Bible Geek Squad. There we go. Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen, and this is my story with the NIV. So back in 2008 when I gave my life to the Lord Jesus Christ, I was already married. My wife and I, we were together and everything, and I gave my life to the Lord back in September 26th. Yeah, September 26th of 2008. And I was, in love with the Lord, and not that I was like past tense, but at the moment, it was just like, wow. I didn't have a Bible. I was using my dad's Bible, and so one day my dad takes me to a flea market, and he purchased for me a nice little personal size Reina Valera 1960, which is equivalent to the New King James. If you've seen my story with the NLT, that little fact right there, it's in there. So that was my first Bible. But you see, even though Spanish is my first language, I struggled reading it. I could speak it, and even at that, it's not my best Spanish. Anyways, so my dad bought me that Reina Valera 1960 edition of the Bible, and I struggled with it, reading it, because a lot of the words there are, a bit hard for me to pronounce and even to understand. But yet, that was my first Bible. My wife had a teen Bible, and it was the New King James, so that's what I was using for a while. But then, that wasn't my Bible, that was her Bible, But I struggled with it. I would compare the New King James with the Reina Valera, and it was basically, I got some clarity out of it, but not so much. Finally, one day, I went to a Christian Bible bookstore, and I bought myself an NIV. And I love the NIV. It was the 1984 edition. It was yet to be revised in 2011. I'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, I carried my NIV, and I used that for a good while. As I read through it, there were certain things that I did not understand in the NIVs, the way they translate in certain things. I had a deep conviction when it came to 1 Corinthians 1 Corinthians 6, verse 9, when it talked about homosexuality. The verse there in the 84 edition, it says homosexual offenders. I didn't understand what that meant. If I'm being honest with you, I had no clue. I was just like, what do you mean homosexual? Anybody that offends a homosexual? Like, I didn't understand that. I tried looking at some commentary, and I didn't know. So anyways, but that was just one of the issues that I had with the NIV 84. As I come into the NLT, that one just changed my life, man. The NLT was just amazing. But go to my YouTube channel and check out my story with the NLT, and you'll find out more of that. But I want you to understand, and this is something that I leave out of my story with the NLT, because it was a back and forth between the NLT and the NIV. I really loved the NIV, and when 2011 came up, there was a revision of it, or an update on the NIV 84, which was now going to be the NIV in 2011. I read a lot of commotion. I'm just like, what is going on? What's happening here? Because the NIV decided, to be a bit more open with, when it says brothers, they decided to add brothers and sisters. And I understand that the NIV had another one called the TNIV, which just completely flopped. And so that's fine. I really didn't know about it until 2011 when I started hearing all these things. I ended up seeing a video on YouTube where the Southern Baptist Convention, the SBC, they voted to rule out the NIV 2011. I was like, wait, what? There was one pastor, and I've been looking for this video. I should have saved this video. I should have. But I was looking at this video where one pastor raised his hands and he says, you know what, I vote that we need to roll out the NIV 2011 because of these updates that they're doing. Before you know it, everybody says, okay, this one guy said yes, let's rule it out. Okay, everybody in favor? Aye, 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 aye. Everybody ruled it out. Why? Just because the NIV decided to go with, brothers and sisters on certain passages? They don't do it in every single passage, where in the original language, it doesn't require to add a sisters part, But anyhow, I may be alone on that, But what NIV did was, where the original language, would refer to a male and female, or brothers and sisters, that's what they did. I didn't see the big commotion in that, because the ESV does the same thing in certain areas where it requires it. Who else did it? The NIV did it. The NASB 2020 that just came out in 2020, they went that route as well. The CSB, the Southern Baptist Convention's translation, as everybody calls it, did that as well. You know what I mean? So I don't understand this double standard. Whatever the NIV does, everybody condemns it, and yet they go and do it. I'm like, what? Anyways, for a while, I fell into that little bandwagon, dismissed the NIV because of this. And it was kind of a heartbreak. But then I decided, I don't care about what other people are saying. I'm already getting bashed for loving the New Living Translation, for making that my primary translation. You know what? I'm going back with the NIV. And so I came back to the NIV about 2-3 years later. This is about around 2014, 15, around there. And so that's when I got this little baby right here. I love this little thing. I got this in 2015, and it's been with me since then. It's a beautiful little thin line, and I added some red art gilding. I actually have another one coming in today, because the Comfort Print edition of this same Bible came out. That one has 2 ribbons, and I'll make a video for you guys on that one. But I wanted to show you the NIV that I used when I came back to the NIV. This was it right here. One little ribbon. No line matching. The paper wasn't the best, but I loved it because of the thinness of it. Very portable. The text, it's great. I can see it. It's not the biggest, but it's not the tiniest either. And it's just great. It's all around. It's already kind of falling apart. I doubt that you're going to see it, but it's already falling apart, scraping, stuff like that. But this was my NIV that I've carried for the last couple of years, since 2015. At the very beginning of my story with the NIV, I also had I was in between the New King James and the NIV, because I didn't understand why the NIV omitted a lot of verses from the text. The NIV ended up putting it in the footnotes area and explained why. I just didn't really comprehend as to why they had to do that. When I ended up getting my NASB, I noticed that they too not omitted the passage, but they put it in brackets, and it explained why. I just still couldn't comprehend it, and I was like, NIV, why can't you do what the NASB? Leave the text in the main text and just put brackets over it. That's what I've wanted. Zondervan, if you watch this, that would be pretty cool. Leave the text in the text, but just put brackets around it. I think that would be awesome. But anyways, going back to 2008, 2009, when I got my NIV, I was confused. I even had a dream where my NIV Bible and my NLT Bible were on this table, and all of a sudden mold started coming out from these 2 translations, and it went all around the table, and it got into my hands, and I was like, oh my goodness, I was freaking out. To me, it was, you need to stay away from these translations. I had been reading into a lot of these people that are the KJV onlyists, where they believe that only the King James translation is the only translation of God. If it was great for Paul, then it's great for us. It's pretty ridiculous statement there. But anyways, that had gotten into my head. I did not understand it. A few years later, I want to say maybe back, in 2010, 2011, I started to understand. I did some research. I read a couple of books, as to why the NIV and all these other modern translations like the NASB, put it in brackets, the CSB, the NIV 2011, the CSB, at the time it was the HCSB. You know, why they put all these verses on the bottom, you know, and I finally comprehended, because these guys are using manuscripts that are a lot closer to Jesus' time than the Textus Receptus, which is exactly what the King James, the New King James, and even the NIV, the Modern English version of the Bible. These guys are using manuscripts that date at least 1,000 years after Jesus' time. I'm not saying that they're not credible. Of course they are. But the newer translations ended up using manuscripts that were older and dated really close to Jesus' time, up to 50, 75 years after Jesus' time, and that's the reason why they ended up going with these manuscripts, with those manuscripts, and why they saw that certain passages were not in the main text. But if you go to your footnotes, it's always there, and they will refer to you where you can actually find that in the original, in other parts of the gospel. So that's pretty cool. Like off the top of my head, Matthew 17:21 or Matthew 18 verse 11. It explains to you as to why. And so when I finally understood, I looked up this guy, Dr. James White. I read his book. I understood him. I heard his debates. I was just like, oh, okay. And so when I would preach out of the NIV, a couple of friends, you know, or a couple of the people there at the church that I wasn't the pastor of, but I helped out, they had similar questions because they noticed it too. And I was just like, oh yeah, I got to help you out, my brother. And so I did that, man. I was able to help them out, help them understand as to why to not listen to the King James only as people, as to this is the only translation. Because my question to them was always, well, which King James edition is it? The Oxford edition or the Cambridge edition? Because believe it or not, they do not say the exact same thing. They differ. And if the King James translation of the Bible is the best, I always ask, why did they have to put the words in italics? The answer to that is usually because the words of italics better help the people understand as to what it means. My refute to that has always been, if the King James translation of the Bible is the best, there's no need for italics. That's man inputting their thoughts, their opinions in it. If the King James is the best, then man should be able to comprehend it, bottom line, right? And so King James only is hate when I have to talk about that, and you know, they'll try to mock it or anything like that, but at the end of the day, they can never answer the question which edition, Oxford or Cambridge, and they just don't like it. Anyways, this is not a video about the King James onlyism or refuting that. That's not it. We can do something like that later on. But there's my story with the NIV. You know, so once I understood as to why that was happening, I was able to help other people that had the same question. And yes, I'm sorry. Yes, the NIV was the very first English Bible that I fell in love with. NLT came, it pushed the NIV. I ended up trying to join the bandwagon of the ESV because a lot of my favorite pastors were using the ESV, and that's what I kept hearing: the ESV this, the ESV that, the ESV this. So I ended up buying a ton of ESV editions, study Bibles, and all these other editions that Crossway came out with, you know, in my early years. And no matter how much I tried getting to the ESV, I just couldn't. I end up coming back to my NIV and my NLT. But the more I thought I couldn't get into the ESV, the more I bought ESVs. And trust me when I say that my collection of Bibles, the vast majority of them are ESVs. Because I thought in my head, for somehow, the more I buy them, I'm going to be forced to read them. I'm going to be forced to adapt to it. And I just couldn't. I couldn't. The NIV and the NLT have won my heart. And up to this date today, I love the ESV, and it's become my third favorite translation. But it has not been able to take over as my number one. I tried it out for a while, and it didn't last. I'm going to be honest with you, it didn't last. The NIV won my heart as well as the NLT, and I'm very grateful for these two translations. Ignore what people say, please, especially the King James Onlyist. The NIV is an excellent translation that God has given us, and I'm very, very grateful. I think people that diminish you or they belittle you because you use the NIV or you use the NLT, these people are just some arrogant people that they need to have. They need to have a check, a self-examination, and realize, hey, we're fortunate to have the Word of God in several translations. Yes, there are some translations that we don't really need, but there are other translations like the NIV or the NLT or the ESV or the NASB that we really do. I'm very grateful for those four translations. I'm very grateful because they've helped us so much. But there should be no divisions or attacks on people that prefer the NIV over the ESV or the NLT over the NASB. I don't think so. There should not be. I think that's just childish and plain stupid, if I'm honest with you. So, again, if you're looking for a Bible that's very well balanced between faithfulness to the original manuscript, to the original language, the Hebrew and the Greek, the NIV is the perfect balance. No wonder it's the #1 bestseller in Bibles. When it comes to Bible translation, it's the NIV. It is the perfect balance. I highly recommend the NIV, and I highly recommend the NLT along with the ESV and the NASB. So that's just me, guys. There's a lot of awesome editions for kids, for teens, for adults, students of the Bible. The NIV is on their game, ladies and gentlemen. So I highly recommend get yourself an NIV study Bible. Get yourself the Thompson. Oh my goodness, I am in love. Zondervan is sending me a Thompson. They send me a hardcover. They're sending me another one, a Truton one. Guys, if you haven't seen that video, go check it out. I'm going to do another review on the one that's coming in, and I can't wait to show it to you guys. But I'm going to tell you right now that Thompson Bible is going to stick with me for a very, very long time. I can't wait to show it off to you guys. Guys, God bless you. Thank you for checking out this video. It might have been a little long, but I'm grateful that you guys stuck with me. God bless you, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye-bye.